All right, down here at the 6 o'clock position, a member of the team I am. He is...
I am Yoda.
Over at the 9 o'clock position. Oh, Yoda Sniper. The left thing said always something. I couldn't quite catch it.
It's great listening to how the Korean commentators talk about the signs when it's in English.
Member of ZeNEX over here on the left side.
ZeNEX, Bjorn.
That is very true, though. He's actually going gas first, so we are going to see a very tech-heavy opener from him. Basically, for those of you guys who are newer players, we do see a gas first, of course, for his opponent as well. Not as quick of a gas as Bjorn's. For those newer players who don't know what it means, or someone who's watching for the first time, because even newer players generally know what this means, but if you're new to StarCraft, a gas first build indicates that you are taking somewhat of a risk to get your faster factory up. A factory, of course, produces Hellions, but more importantly, gives you the tech to make a starport. So basically, when you go for a fast gas, you're either going for Banshees or Blue Flame Hellions in this matchup. You want to get them out faster than your opponent. Yep. So you take that risk and get the gas up. It makes you vulnerable to some sort of Marine SCV all-in or some type of bunker push, anything like that. You're just not going to have as many Marines as your opponent, so it's somewhat of a risk, but...
Yeah, StarCraft's all about balancing your economy, balancing your tech, and balancing your army. So you always need to have enough units to defend yourself, but you also need to be able to get the economy to be able to get the better units later, and make sure you keep up with the tech race against your opponent so they don't have nukes coming out when you still only have the Marines or any other sort of thing like that. And we do see the factories coming out here for both players, as you were talking about, Wolf. Exactly playing the same. Bjorn is keeping his units very, very close. It's easier to defend that, but it's also easier for your opponent to scout it. He is using this supply depot on the side because that gives him full vision of his entire territory and makes it a lot more difficult for his opponent to do any sort of drop play or any sort of sneaky maneuvers.
Speaking of drop play, we are at close air positions, and this is going to play out really interestingly. When you have two players go gas first, things get really weird because sometimes you have Hellions drops versus Hellion drops, and then the Viking comes out, and both players trying to micro their dropships, or you have Banshees against a Hellion drop. Do you pull the Banshee back to defend? When the Banshee sees that dropship, what do you do? Do you turn around immediately and try to kill the Hellions with it, or do you still go? A lot of different things go into people's minds when it's this very, very fast gas versus very fast gas, especially at close air distances where the drops and the Banshees are going to be flying right next to each other.
But we do see Yoda here getting the tech lab a little bit earlier, so he's going to be able to get those upgrades out. Well, he's going to actually be swapping his factory with the starport as soon as the starport finishes. So it's just, he's getting out the building earlier, he's not able to use it, really not much of a difference, it's just a personal style. However, Bjorn is able to get this Hellion out early. He is going to be able to scout the Zelnaga Tower, make sure that he knows exactly what's going on. And he's going to move over to the natural of Yoda. He doesn't know that there is no expansion going up here, but you just want to be sure that he knows exactly that. Oh, and it does actually get caught. It almost gets taken out. It does get away with 8 health, I believe. It's able to go home and get repaired. It's actually 6 health, but it's not what he wants to have happen. Meanwhile, Yoda's Hellion... Where did Yoda's Hellion go?
Well, I just want to talk about, we were talking about these guys' builds. Right now, they're both making a Banshee. Where the build differs is that we have a reactor going down for Bjorn, whereas there's a command center going down for Yoda, and I actually like the command center idea much better. We probably will see a command center pretty soon from Bjorn, but the fact that he's making that reactor first, I'm not sure if I agree with it. He's going to send some Hellions forward here to clean up some Marines so that when his Banshee comes in, there's not as much resistance.
Yeah.
And there go the Banshees, exactly what I was talking about. They run into each other.
The Banshees are also going to pull the Marines back, and by pulling the Marines... Oh! Yoda actually caught the Banshee of Bjorn out of position. He was able to take it down very easily. However, the Hellions are going to try to run in the front. If they can get a nice line on these SCVs, they can do a lot of kills. However, they're not going to get the hits off immediately. They're only going to take down a few SCVs. This is exactly what Yoda needs to have happen. He is now moving in with his own Banshee, who's not taken out quite yet. He doesn't have cloaks, and this Viking is going to be able to kill it, but not before he gets, I believe, 6 kills on that Banshee.
Indeed, it was 6 kills. Vikings trying to control the air area here. Whichever Viking gets the first shot will win that battle.
Yeah, very nice choice here by Yoda. They had very similar builds, however, Yoda decided to get more Marines while Bjorn decided to get more Hellions. The Hellions did get in exactly when they needed to, but they really needed that Banshee to be supporting them, otherwise their effectiveness really diminishes.
Yeah, if he had been able to just not lose that Banshee, the Hellions would have really tripped him up as well. Things could have gone very differently. It's very unfortunate for him that he lost that Banshee, and now he's in a very awkward position. He's making that command center a little bit later than his opponent.
Yep.
His opponent has a larger army. He's going to run up the ramp. He even has the Viking landed to participate in this battle. He does have a tank out, but his Marines are at the back, and when these units get up the top of the ramp, he's going to be able to crush base, essentially, with this army, and he's actually going to go... May have attacked that command center.
A lot of the SCVs being pulled here. He needs to win this battle. If he does not win the battle, he does lose the game. The command center is delayed, but these SCVs are going to crumble quite quickly. Yoda doing exactly what he needs to do in this position, but it is going to get forced away.
Does get forced away. Could have done a lot more damage had Bjorn not reacted perfectly. It was able to keep that command center building. I thought he might have freaked out and canceled it because that's, a reaction a lot of players might have had in that scenario. Blue Flame is going to finish up here for Yoda, and that's going to allow him to do a lot more things like control watchtowers, harass expansions in the later stages of the game. If it does get to that point, he's added the second factory, and he's going to start meching pretty hard. He's also getting a Raven just in case, but also to give those point defense drones to help his Vikings out, defend against Marauder drops. Here comes a Banshee, though. This is the second time a Banshee has come in. This time, Bjorn will not lose it carelessly.
Yeah, he went a little bit further around. He didn't want to go for speed. He wanted to go for espionage, or not espionage, but he is doing exactly what he needs to do. He's forcing the SCVs to transfer over to the natural, and then is going to get chased away by this Viking. If you micro perfectly with the Viking, you can make sure it shoots without accelerating at all. So Bjorn, knowing this, decides just to try to get as much damage as he possibly can before it dies, instead of trying to run away. Very nice choice.
He basically killed a few SCVs, killed that mule, and the cool thing was, I didn't notice this, Yoda made a smart choice but ended up hurting him, is he saved a lot of scans just in case. And then as soon as the Banshee died, he was like, oh, so you don't have Cloak, and then dropped like 4 mules.
Yeah.
Having those mules out a little bit later does hurt him in the long run, so that just sending that second Banshee scares him a little bit, makes him want to save up some scans. He already saved up the 1 scan. When the Banshee came, he didn't drop any mules for a while, just wanted to be very careful and very safe.
Yeah, they're both getting siege tech at the same time. Not having that extra mineral boost is going to make it harder for Yoda to get out the units that he needs to defend. But he still has the same amount of gas, so he is going to be able to get the tech up at the same time, which is very, very important right now.
Worker count's dead even between these guys. Stim on the way for Bjorn. Interestingly, he doesn't actually have that much bio out. Not yet, at least.
Yoda actually getting some of his army caught here, but he does have Blue Flame. He is going to be able to do a lot of damage to a lot of these SCVs if he gets in the right position. There go a bunch. Here's going to be another wave, and he is going to keep 3 alive still. He's going to do a lot of damage, but Bjorn doing a great job of keeping his units split so the Hellions can only hit 1 or 2 at the same time. That was a really nice preparation by Bjorn. It still did a lot of damage or Yoda still did a lot of damage to Bjorn, so it was worth it for him, but Bjorn reacted very, very well.
Yeah, that was a great job. Another thing I'd like to point out is that Bjorn has a Viking. You just got a shot of it there. Patrolling around, trying to check for things. He wants to make sure he doesn't get pre-ignite or Hellion drops. Once you see the blue flame, it makes you very cautious. You want to make sure you have that Viking patrolling around and think, in case things go wrong. This could go wrong for that Viking, though. 3 or 2.
Yeah, we're about to have 2 Vikings versus 1. That's not a fight you want to be in. Meanwhile, there's the Raven and the Banshee following this up, so that is going to force Bjorn's army to come back home and defend the main base.
Right now, supply-wise, Bjorn is down just 1 supply. Very, very close in supply. Unfortunately for Yoda, he's actually severely supply blocked. He had to make 2 depots there. Stim finishing up for Bjorn. His army now much more bio-oriented. You know, I said he was researching it before. He didn't have that many bio units, but he's got Reactor, 3 barracks going down.
Bjorn actually had a bad rally on his main command center. He actually rallied to one of his mining SCVs. This is a mistake that a lot of newer players make. It's something that, if you're not careful, it can make that all your new SCVs don't actually mine. It looks like they're doing that, but yep, you can see there, the one SCV is just not doing anything. It's just following the other one around. He will fix this soon, but
yeah, luckily not too detrimental because he was supply blocked, so he didn't even have that many SCVs come out. Both of these guys getting very supply blocked. So it's not something you see at this level very often. I think part of it is just nerves, and they're playing a very scary style. You know, there's all this harassment going on. He's worried about the Vikings coming over, the Hellions coming over. Speaking of those Hellions, here they come now. Does pull his SCVs very quickly.
Oh, beautiful wall there with the Marines and Marauders. The Hellions were not able to get in. I think they only took down 1 SCV, if any at all.
Yeah, that is actually how you defend against this type of build. You have a nice wall off, and you pull your SCVs, you react calmly, you don't clump them up, you pull them, then you split them up a little bit, you keep them away from the Hellions. You see so many players just pull SCVs in an arbitrary place.
But we do have another drop coming in from the other side here, so I don't think Beyond has enough forces here to defend against this immediately. It can do a lot of damage, but most of his SCVs are actually at his natural, so he should be okay.
Looks like he's just going to go for that natural, though, Torch. There is one tank and a Marauder and one Marine going to help out. Drops one in the main, and is going to drop the other two in the natural.
That's actually a really nice move. It forces them to move a lot of the SCVs away, but where are they going to move to when there's Hellions at both bases, burning everything around? Meanwhile, there is a main force from Beyond about to attack the main of Yoda. This is actually really good positioning from him. It's hard for Yoda's air army to do much to this ground force.
And it looks like that last Hellion does get cleaned up inside the main of Beyond. He actually has one more, though, and he's going to drop it on top of these SCVs one more time, but they are pulled immediately. Great control here by Beyond. He's also made his third command center at the third base, whereas Yoda has made his command center around the exact same time, just not at the actual base. That's exactly what Beyond's army is coming to check for here.
Yeah, and it looks like they might actually catch this at the perfect time. They are going to move in and see that it's floating, be able to do some damage to it. Actually might be able to take it out if Yoda does not react quickly enough. There's not enough tanks here for Yoda, so he's not able to push in, so he might actually lose this command center right now. Blue Flame Hellions are trying to do something, but they don't, and the command center goes down. That is huge at this stage in the game. It's very difficult.
I just wanted to say that this other command center, though, does finish. He actually made a fourth command center, so as it looks detrimental, he's still in a decent spot from here because he made two command centers, man.
He made two command centers, but it's very difficult for him to get this third position because there is such a strong ground army out here for Beyond. Yoda is ahead in almost 30 supply, but it's very difficult for him to mobilize that supply right now.
It is indeed. Right now, he is going to go ahead and move as he moves that command center over. Basically, instead of attacking his opponent's army dead on at the third base location, he's just going to force that army to move by moving his own army. Marauders simming forward here against unsieged tanks. The problem is there's a point defense drone there, and there are just way too many tanks. Point defense drone absorbing all of the Marauder shots.
But there's a second force coming up here from the lower left by Beyond. He is going to be able to catch this army of Yoda out in the open and be able to take it down relatively easily. There's all the Vikings landed, so they were able to take off the main force of Beyond. There's not enough tanks here, so it was a nice tank trade for both players, but that's going to put Yoda in a slight lead because he does have his air force still and is able to focus more on just reinforcing the units that he needs.
The SCV count, though, however, is higher for Yoda. I actually misread that SCV count. Even so, he's had his command center up. Beyond has had his command center up a little bit longer. He didn't transfer his SCVs over there very quickly. In fact, he dropped a lot of mules there. But even so, he could have capitalized on that faster third command center a little bit better, but he was really busy dealing with that attack. He had two different groups of units. That trade ended up being better for him just slightly, but the problem is he just doesn't have another army to back it up because he's behind in general. So now he's kind of put himself on somewhat of even footing. As far as upgrades, though, his opponent has much better upgrades. He's getting +2 on his tanks right now. He doesn't have any upgrades for his infantry, but he's not using infantry. He's meching.
Yeah, and he's got these Blue Flame Hellions to be able to discourage the use of heavy Marine play from Beyond.
Not only that, we'll hold that thought. Hellions dropping down here again. Going to clean up some of these Marines. Just a decent trade overall for these Hellions. Does damage a lot of the SCVs. He's got that Blue Flame tug. He's got the +1 on those mech units. He's got Vikings. He's got the air control. He's got the Raven. He's even got a Banshee in the mix. He's got a lot more units. He's got a lot better of a composition, I think, for this kind of scenario.
Yeah, Beyond going for more of the strong punching your opponent style, while Yoda is going for a very varied unit composition. So he's got all the different units that you just named, and if you can use them effectively, it's a lot better. Having those few point defense drones out there can help make sure that the Marauders don't do anything. Having the Vikings there, you can land on the opponent's tanks. You can make sure their medevacs don't do anything. Later on, if you have a huge medevac force, or a huge Viking force, excuse me, you can actually get battlecruisers out later in a TPT. But the medevac was trying to sneak around. It did get caught by Beyond's force. That's good because it takes down that drop potential, but it also lets Yoda know exactly where that little army is, and Yoda is going to move out and try to kill it. He also does have a sensor tower up here, so he is going to be able to see roughly where the units of Beyond are moving and be able to respond accordingly.
Beyond actually taking a little bit of a supply lead. He's actually playing this style really well. He's got a decent amount of Marauders and Marines. He's got a decent amount of tanks as well. He's just got a very mixed style. He's not going just purely Marine tank. He's not going Marauder heavy. He's going a decent amount of Marauders with Marine tank.
Yeah.
And I like the style. You have to be very mobile and very aggressive with this style as you take bases all over the map. And that's exactly what he's doing, taking his fourth base right now.
And the composition with the bio plus the tanks is really, really strong. The main weakness of it is if you do have an army trade, it's very, very difficult for you to replenish the tanks again. So it's really, you have a strong army for that first battle, but then after that, it's very hard for you to reinforce.
Exactly. The bio also abuses the fact that tanks are often immobile. There is a planetary at the third, so that means less mules for Yoda, but at the same time, he is going to be, of course, relatively safe from Marauder attacks.
And really
if this army gets caught on siege, could be really bad, but he does siege up very quickly. Marines running forward here does take out that Banshee. That's pretty huge.
Beyond required to use scans here to get the vision, while Yoda can save his energy and instead use the air army. He's being a little bit too aggressive with it. Almost lost the Viking, but in exchange for medevacs, actually a really good trade for him.
You know, the problem here for Yoda is that if he moves forward and his opponent sees him on siege, he is just going to run his Marauders forward and kill a ton of those tanks.
Yeah, but the timing of it is very, very difficult for Beyond to be able to do that. There are 2 medevacs coming in here full of Marauders, which is great against the tank army, but the Vikings there to support is going to make it very, very difficult. Point defense drones going down, so the Marauders are not doing the damage that they need to. There's a lot of tanks here for Yoda. They are able to melt the bio army of Beyond and force the entire army back. The supply just completely flipped. There's 170 out here for Yoda and only 153 for Beyond. Meanwhile, Yoda is able to move forward. Marauders coming in to try to do the damage with the point defense thrown out exactly what it needed to be. The medevac's falling for Beyond. These Vikings are doing exactly what they need to. The tanks getting pushed back by the Banshees. Just Yoda's playing this push beautifully.
He really is. The Vikings controlling the air, allowing him to push forward his tanks slowly but surely towards his opponent, forcing him to use scans. Not only that, but having that one Banshee out just completely changes everything because he doesn't have enough anti-air. If he tries to run his Marines forward to target down the Banshee, the tanks just destroy them. And it's very, very difficult to play in this position. If you have that bio army that's more mobile, I think what happened to Beyond there in that moment was he panicked and decided to go for an attack when the tanks were on siege. He didn't have to do that. The Raven and the point defense drone, though, came into play so much, and I can't even describe to you guys how important that was. As you can see here, the Vikings is controlling the air. Every time he wants to attack, he's going to have to use a scan. The Banshees is going to work on everything. There's no answer for those Banshees.
And there's no way that Yoda is going to be able to get enough Vikings out here. As soon as they do spawn, they are going to be taken out by...
He needs to make Thors. That's what he needs to do, but he just doesn't have the economy to do that. He doesn't have the army to support them. If he makes a Thor, it's one less tank he's going to have. It's very difficult to play in this situation.
Yeah, I think Beyond really feeling the pressure here. He does need to hold this push, and this push makes it up to the natural. It's essentially GG because there's no reinforcements that can defend any of his other expansions. Meanwhile, this air army is going to be able to continually go around. Vikings are just making sure that the count of Yoda does not, or of Beyond does not get up to the point that can actually defend.
And he's actually camping the starport. This is what it's called when you keep your Vikings on top of the starport and kill every Viking that comes out. It essentially shuts down Viking production for Beyond, and Beyond is 50 supply behind right now. He's had more bases for a while, but he hasn't really been using that 4th base. Hold that thought.
Yoda also getting the gold base. He doesn't have as many orbital commands, so he doesn't have as many mules, but all of his units are a lot more effective on that gold mineral patch, so it kind of balances itself out. It's easier for him to defend, and he actually gets about the same income.
This is true. Marines running forward here, trying to target down some of these Vikings, trying to abuse the fact that tanks were on siege there for a moment, but he does siege up immediately. This game could go on for a lot longer because Beyond has such a scary Marauder force that if he moves forward with his tanks on siege, Beyond can go through and destroy them, but...
Yeah, that's almost 30 Marauders out there. He only has 5 tanks to hold a position, but that's all you need to hold one position. Having those Marauders there, again, you're saying it's very difficult to move in. Because if the tanks are caught on siege, Marauders just decimate tanks.
Indeed. +3 vehicle weapons being researched for Yoda and +3 infantry weapons for Beyond, so you can see their styles kind of differing here, and upgrades as well, of course. Both players upgrading their one specific unit.
The issue is that
Thor.
Yoda is just inching forward here. Oh, very nice shot from that Thor. Did a lot of damage to the air units. Didn't kill anything, but it weakened it enough that when the straight-up fight does happen, it will be a lot easier to take those out. Yoda is maxed here, just trying to inch forward slowly. Make sure there's no time that the Marauders can push in. He does take a few extra tank shots, but because he has so many tanks himself, it's actually a very nice trade in his favor.
Right now,
but here comes the Marauders. They do stim in and move in. Perfect timing, but the point defense drones do come down and he is forced to run away. He took out a few tanks, but he dropped down to 150 supply.
Yeah, basically he basically just used 180 point defense drone energy for about 14 or 15 Marauders. Not a good trade there. I'm not entirely sure why he decided to do that. He knew the PDD was there. Now he's in a really tough spot. These tanks are sieging up, crushing his army.
Yeah, that Thor going down, it was way too far ahead. He wasn't able to take out the air units, and now Yoda is just moving forward and forward and forward with this army. ZeNEX's army is dwindling. His supply is going down a lot. He doesn't have a whole lot of ability to reinforce. However, the reinforcements are quite nicely upgraded. So if he can sort of get some sort of standing army up, he might have a chance of counterattacking here.
I'm surprised we haven't seen any sort of more active Banshee usage. Hold that thought. Marauders trying to run forward here. They want to catch these tanks of siege. There's just too many tanks. And obviously you can see tons of scans going down. Both players wanting to move forward and siege up at the right moment. Running with their Marauders at the right moment. These tanks are actually going to take out this orbital.
Yeah,
oh
as this game progresses.
There's a lot of SCVs. He actually will lose these tanks. The Vikings might want to land on the high ground.
Blue Flame Hellions doing a really nice job of killing these SCVs. However, the SCVs did what they needed to, which was taking out those tanks that were sieging up the 4th base of Beyond. However, it's going to be very, very difficult for him to hold all these different fronts at the same time. The Bio Army is going to come in here and try to do a little bit. It's going to be a nice economical trade, but he needs to do a lot more than that right now.
Yeah, I actually think that at this point it's almost impossible for Beyond to come back.
Yep.
GG.
You think so too? That was a really nice play by Yoda. He had, they started out roughly equivalent, but the thing is that later in the game, the air army of Yoda was actually really, really instrumental in keeping the effectiveness of those Marauders down. Those point defense drones he put out only when he needed them, and then tried to fight around them for the rest of the time. And that just shut down the Marauder count that Beyond was trying to build up.
Indeed it did. Now, I gotta say, the strategy that Beyond was doing, he did it just right. He actually split his Marauders into several different directions. He had Marauders going on the left side, some of them going on the right. The Planetary, I think, kind of shut down his plans. He was like, oh, well, I can't do exactly what I plan to do because there's a Planetary there. You can't use Marauders against it very effectively. So he was very mobile at the initial part of the game, but when those Vikings and the Banshee came out, he didn't really know what to do next. And when you get in that position where your opponent has like 7 or 8 Vikings and 2 Banshees and 1 Raven, you have to make Thors, but you don't want to because you only have 1 factory oftentimes if you're doing this style, or maybe just 2. Whereas you need those factories making tanks, and you just can't make the Thors, and eventually you do. But you're scared about using the Thors because you move the Thors just a little bit too close to the tanks, they just get destroyed. But you know, you just have to get those Thors out. You can't control the air without them, and even if you try to, when that air control comes out in TVT, all sorts of things happen. You can make the Banshee switch. You can make the Battle Cruiser switch. I thought Beyond was doing a great job of holding off that slow push towards his natural. If they had been cross-map, for example, that would have been very different. But we're going to look at the next player here. Maybe. Probably. They always hide their faces from me.
It is going to be ZeNEX Naya, I believe. Naya doing a very nice job so far. Not a whole lot of experience either. Let me make sure we get confirmation of that.
I actually don't know what Naya's face looks like, to be honest with you. So even though now I can see his face.
Oh, it's Puzzle.
Yeah, I was like, I'm pretty sure that's Puzzle, but you said it was Naya. I'm just going to trust you.
I tried to listen to the Koreans to hear what the Korean name was, but slightly off.
Puzzle actually looks very different with his hairstyle today.
Yeah. Very tall player.
He is really tall. He's a great player. I'm surprised we're seeing him here today. I kind of didn't think we would see him against Yoda after we saw Yoda just... I've seen him play a lot of TVPs in the past that were really strong, and I don't know, I'm just a little surprised. But we're going to take a 2-minute break. So when we get back, Yoda against Puzzle.
Another TVP. Maybe with nukes.